Oh my god. Gege Akutami sensei has just blessed us with one of the greatest reveal chapters in all of JJK. The setup, the scene orientation, the payoff, the lore, the vibe Gege sets is like its own genre. This chapter is the complete descent into chaos. If shit didn't already hit the fan, well, it sure as hell is starting to this chapter. Kenjaku is looking like the cleanest character in JJK. My man is untouchable and is holding all of the cards in his hand. We are witnessing the downfall of the modern era, and we will just have to see how our sorcerers react to this chaos. This chapter was heavy, it's very deep, and it's some really good payoff for some fans who've been anticipating Kenjaku's motives and seeing us in the Tomb of the Stars. So I'm really going to divulge and break down this chapter to the best of my own ability and give my takes on this absolute paradox of a chapter. It's like Kenjaku gave us just a glimpse of 1% of his intellect. This dude is just flexing on us right now. With Gojo gone, Kenjaku is just dunking on the entire world, the entire cast. If we were to call Kenjaku like one of the best antagonists in Jump, I would pretty much agree with that. That's not even a dispute, because he is the GOAT, and I do not say that lightly. He just operates on a higher spectrum in just his pure mindset and motives. Kenjaku is just like a mad scientist, and the world itself is his test subject. Today we will dive into the lore and possible outcomes of this chapter, so we're going to break it up into sections as to keep our own head straight on this wild plot. I'm honestly inclined to say Kenjaku is just out here breaking fate, cause Gege is just letting bro be the most cunning sorcerer in the story with his 4D plans. I mean, this dude is literally speed running villainy. But let's get into our first order of business by divulging onto everyone's favorite tall girl with a big butt, our sister Yuki Tsukumo. This chapter felt like opening Pandora's box. And this opener involving Yuki and Tengen finally getting some spotlight was god tier. I love everything about this chapter. So the beginning starts with some info on the Star Plasma vessel, and that's where all of this started. All of this began. 12 years ago, Jujutsu has begun its descent into darkness with Riko Amanai's death, the most important mission and the most critical failure of the Sorcerer alumni's past. Tengen subtly reveals that Riko was not the only vessel. She was the one with the most potential. In fact, Yuki Tsukumo herself is a former Star Plasma vessel, so things are getting interesting. Yuki and Tengen properly have a deep discussion on things, and Yuki pressures Tengen on why he rejected the merger because he had other options besides Riko. However, in Tengen's terms, they simply felt it wasn't worth the trouble to merge and stabilize themselves, just to keep resetting. Tengen feels they can still possibly maintain self-control even when they evolve via the use of barrier techniques like they're doing now. Tengen is willing to accept the fact that he evolves just like how seasons naturally change. It's inevitable. But that's very strange for an important figure like Tengen to say. Tengen is the sage, the founder of Jujutsu, yet he's willing to gamble his will, the fate of the earth, because he accepted his reality. Simply, that's bullshit. Yuki calls BS because Tengen's nonchalantly and deviating will is unfair. And she knows this. That's why she's upset with Tengen, because it all ultimately goes back to him. After the tragedy of the Gojo past arc, you cannot just call it quits and accept your evolution. If this is what you call rationality, then you may as well call me the great sage and worship me, you shitty old geezer. This is why Yuki is so abrasive toward Tengen, and this relationship is like that of an old teacher and a student. Like, it's kind of funny because it's just that Yuki has this irritation with Tengen's passiveness, but we definitely see where Yuki's interests align because she's trying to get the bigger picture. Even dwelling on a scenario if the Time Vessel Association Church protected vessels instead of trying to assassinate, Yuki would have been on their side. But thinking about things like that of what would or could or should have happened is just a pain. Tengen changes the topic by promptly asking Yuki if she can hear their voices, referring to the collected mass of past star plasma vessels inside of them, and they want to know what they're saying. Looking at this picture, Riko Amanai is here too, even though she's a failed vessel. Riko did not merge, or maybe this picture is just for reference, but still they're all connected. And what's interesting is that Yuki can hear them, and Tengen shows interest in their voices because Tengen cannot hear them in their immortal body. So they want some type of closure maybe. Yuki is very pissed off right now and refuses to discuss the vessel's voices because in no way can their fate justify Tengen's passiveness. And Yuki thinks Tengen would just make their scenario or their fate or their life into some type of enlightened lesson to justify their actions, but Yuki won't make it that easy for him. She says that's her responsibility as a former vessel. If you think about Riko's life, Amanai did not want to merge. She wanted to live normally. She wanted to live the rest of her life before giving it all up. So this merging is dark for the vessel. Their fate is always to join Tengen's consciousness, to lose their individuality. It's very sad for a 14-year-old girl to go through that type of crisis. And now she couldn't even live her life because she was killed, and her merger was like a fruitless effort because Tengen turned around and thought their fate was already set in motion to just evolve and ascend. It seems our girl Yuki is in a sort of entanglement with Lord Tengen. They may have been bound by fate after all, and it's still very vague what their relationship is or where their goals line up, because Tengen isn't really all that bad, but their motives and inactivity is extremely suspicious. They let themselves evolve even after having options or other vessels to merge with. And also fate was broken 12 years ago, so now they treat ascension as a course of nature, and they want to know what the vessels are saying inside of him. And Yuki refuses them instead. It's like what is it her job to do? Why is it her responsibility as a vessel to withhold things from Tengen? Is it her own will? Is it the will of the ones before her? There's a lot of questions, a lot. And we left things off on a bit of a cliffhanger with Yuki, which Gege did perfectly, because it's like we just got a taste of what's going on with Tengen, just enough to leave us with even more questions than when we started, because both of them have a very strange and complicated relationship as an immortal and a former vessel. So now it looks like Tengen is saying their goodbyes because the barrier has been infiltrated, causing reality to break at the seams. And remember, we are in the tomb of the star, and Tengen is the strongest barrier user in the story. This entire chapter is set in his barrier, and the things that we see in the chapter, in theory, are constructed by Tengen's inner mindscape. And I feel this first half of the chapter was at least to me, it felt very eerie and symbolic and thematic, because we have traditional Japanese set, they're enjoying tea in this room with snacks, but there's also imagery of charms like the Tanuki raccoon dog statue, which is extremely subtle. I think it only got 1 or 2 panels, but this object signifies something Gege left for us. Tanuki are symbolic in folklore to be tricksters and conniving yokai who bring misfortune. They can also be lucky, but it's ironic either way because look at what trickster shows up. So now we digress into Kenjaku and his karma with his oldest son Chozo. And Kenjaku's entrance had me hype beyond belief. Kenjaku has reached the penultimate stage of his plan in this psychedelic final destination of a place, the tomb of the star. Finally, we have made it. An ancient barrier. And notice how refined this barrier is. If you notice how Gege drew it, even when it's broken, it has this perfect hex scale like etch. It's different from normal barrier walls. It's widely more refined because it rejects all. Remember, this is a specialized barrier for Tengen. Only Tengen can allow people inside of it, yet Kenjaku is here nonetheless. Bro is a certified menace, and he's got his sights set on Master Tengen himself. So imagine Kenjaku's disappointment when he sees his failure of a son Chozo greet him and about to fight him. Kenjaku is really making it clear that he has no use in Chozo at all anymore. The boy is disowned and he's outlived his usefulness. And what I love here is how assured both Kenjaku and Chozo are. They both have their will because Chozo does not care and he's like this reserved, angsty teen, but they kind of entertain each other before they fight and discuss some very, very heavy info. Kenjaku is like a mad scientist. He's methodical, and that holds true in his conversation with Chozo. He's not worried. So he might as well just go ahead and reveal everything. The Culling Games have served its purpose. The preparations for the merger of humankind and Tengen is broken in already. If Kenjaku seizes Tengen, the world falls. So Kenjaku is nice enough to prepare a nice little PowerPoint style sideshow for just how he'll do it. So he uses Tengen's barrier to reflect his thoughts into space, manifesting a theater. And this is pretty crazy because Kenjaku is the type of guy not only to outplay you, but to also have a 4-page essay and a PowerPoint ready on how exactly he's going to win. Like, the dude is next level. He first points out that in Shibuya, Yuki feels the merger with Tengen means quote-unquote becoming a sorcerer. So that could translate to harnessing cursed energy and controlling it. That is what Yuki Tsukumo suggests is merging with Tengen. Both her and Kenjaku have different takes on this step, but this process of sorcerer making is called optimizing cursed energy, and that is how sorcerers are created and different from regular people. But Kenjaku thinks this step is actually just before the real merger though. It's like breaking in the body before the merge. But he thought it was actually interesting that Yuki knew that other countries would want cursed energy from the Japanese, so their thought process were alike in some ways. But now we dive into Kenjaku's reasonings, his conviction, because at one time, Kenjaku worked alongside sorcerers, but unlike Yuki, he didn't want a curse-free world. At one point, Kenjaku must have saw the cycle of curses, sorcerers, humans, death, and saw the potential in a new form of cursed energy. And this is in line with what he was saying in chapter 136. He's like a kid, he's like a mad scientist. There must be more potential in human beings. And it looks like cursed spirits are actually like the next form of evolution, the higher being. So he tried to do that with cursed wombs, and he failed with that. He is regarded as the most evil sorcerer in history because Kenjaku did some very despicable things to a woman who bore cursed spirit children. Children of curse and human, of mixed blood. They're like this mixed breed of sorcerers like Chozo. However, they were all too ordinary in Kenjaku's eyes. All of his 9 cursed children are worthless. They're like a disappointment to Kenjaku. And this is why Chozo hates Kenjaku, because he knows how he toyed with his mother 150 years ago and he exploited his power. But besides that point, Kenjaku regards Tengen as more cursed spirit than human. So if Tengen was to merge with all of humankind in Japan, he thinks it will become a cursed spirit bearing the cursed energy of 100 million people. Maybe even being something like Uzumaki and extracting something from all of this. Not even Kenjaku knows what will happen from the evil influence of negativity and cursed energy merging from humankind. Just something else would give birth to this. And this is also a callback to chapter 136 because Kenjaku wants that chaos. He seeks that answer flickering darkly in chaos, like a kid in front of a blank canvas, not even knowing what can be born from all of this. And the picture we get is really gnarly. It's extremely scary. It's like Kenjaku imagined the freaking 10 tails and the founder titan mixed in this cataclysmic event and this monster being born. And it's very gnarly and quite big. For anyone wondering what this location is, I believe it's Tokyo Tower in Minato City, and it just, all this curse and calamity just brought about this beast that is huge and could probably end the world. And all this death and chaos for what? Not just genocide, but mass extinction, the end of it all. Why? What does Kenjaku want? He does all this for the sake of his own curiosity. He finds it fascinating just what will happen. He's like a mad scientist. So if all of his efforts to corrupt humanity, evolving 100 million people in curses, turning people into something else, if it turns out to be something silly like a clown face, and he's obviously trolling, he'd laugh. And it's pretty genuine that he'd laugh in the face of despair and the evil of his doing. He really gives me like peak Orochimaru vibes right now. So this causes Chozo to get riled up and prompt a fight between them. And I really like this setup. I believe this is 2 days in the future from the US colony invasion, so Kenjaku has already have his plans set in motion, and all he needs is Tengen. So now the time for talk is over. 1v1 Kenjaku versus Chozo. And as a fan favorite brother, a lot of us want to hop on that hopium like somehow, some way, Gege please don't take Chozo away. And I don't know, Gege just might write Chozo off, y'all. I really would not put it past Gege to do that. Kenjaku is so above this fight that it's actually laughable to him. I mean, no disrespect to Chozo, but to Kenjaku, he's not just fodder, but redisposable fodder. Please try your best. And that is not what you want to hear before a battle. And what's funny is that Kenjaku already threw hands once, and in that little skirmish, and that was very, very easy light work for him. But now this is a 1v1 against one of the most experienced sorcerers, the second most powerful barrier user, and the dude has curse manipulation with idol transfiguration and God knows what else. Hell, this man already knows the matchup. If you think about it, Kenjaku technically had blood manipulation in the past before in Noritoshi Kamo's body. And Chozo is already in a half-cursed body already. Kenjaku fathers Chozo literally. If you ask me, bro is about to get the belt for real. And it's no easy way of saying this, but Chozo will get cooked in this 1v1. If this isn't a immediate wash, I honestly will be shocked. And it's up to Gege's mercy whether Chozo dies, and I hope not, I really do. So what's very likely is that we'll get a situation where Yuki drops into the fight to fight with Chozo or save Chozo, and I think that would be very badass and cool if she pops in a fight like that. And Yuki's duty is to protect Tengen for now. She has to protect Tengen to save humanity. So we 100% are going to see her fight soon in her battle, and that would be extremely cool to see. And I know this arc is pretty early on into like this next stage, and this fight really actually seems like a sort of final destination battle based on the imagery and the insane background and the details Gege put in this standoff. And this fight is like, it has the fate of humanity at stake, so perhaps we'll see something spectacular. And the way Tengen was speaking sounds like this is his final moment. It's like he's saying goodbye to Yuki because Kenjaku is here to collect him and end the world. So it's very obscure because I can't even say how Tengen feels about Ascension, because this enlightened sage has accepted their technique to overwrite their will. Whether Tengen keeps their humanity is like a course of nature, and that's really dark and obscure, and I hope Tengen isn't as suspicious as I think they are, because if he were already working with Kenjaku, he'd have lost himself eons ago. It's only now where Tengen is revealing info to the sorcerers and thinking about the souls inside of him. And we gotta see just how Gege cooks this one up, because I'm very interested in Tengen and Yuki's story. Because Yuki may be a vital asset to solving all of this mess. She always looks for the source and follows her own judgment. So it's going to be really cool seeing how she fights, her approach to Kenjaku, and what her history is. It looks like we've reached this point, this crossroads of destiny at the Tomb of the Star, so things really will divulge into complete chaos of curses and anarchy soon. I really have a lot more to say and get into regarding this chapter, so I'll probably make another video or stream a discussion on this crazy chapter. The possibilities are insane, and Gege really has my mind racing. So share you guys' thoughts and opinions as well. I enjoy reading each and every comment. This has been Enemy Stand User, and I'll see you awesome guys in the next one. Bye-bye.